Hi, on the Woodpecker today, I'm making this door. I don't know if you remember, but 7 years ago, I made an intarsia plaque as a Christmas present for my sister. She loved it so much that she asked me to make another one. But this time around, it's to replace the medicine cabinet door she has in her bedroom. Okay, I understand her. So, if you hated my last episode, 7 years ago, you'll still like this one. The first thing I do is to surface some wood for the frame. When I'm done, I rip enough strips for all the sides. Then I adjust the blade to cut the back rabbet. When that's done, I can cut the first 45 degrees on each side. When I'm done, I switch sides, move the stop to the long side, and cut both of them. I move the stop for the short sides and cut them also. Now I'm ready to mark the placement of the mortises on two sides and cut them. Then I glue them. It's quite easy. I spread glue on both joints, insert dominoes, and put two pieces together. I make sure the joint is tight and do the same thing for the second half. But it's only when I'm ready to put those two halves together that I realize that I cut one half incorrectly. After a moment's thought, I break apart one half. This was quite easy because the glue was not totally set. I cut and clean up the domino. When I'm done, I mark where I need the new mortises to be and cut them. Then I can glue this corner. When the glue is dry, I put both halves together, mark the rest of the mortises, and cut them. Last thing to do is to glue all of this together. But since I now have two corners glued, I can use clamps to hold this together. One thing for sure, all the corners fit well together. Now I can leave this alone and start to work on the intarsia part of the project. So after printing several patterns, I cut all the shapes I need for each piece of wood that I intend to use. I have to use several patterns to have all the small pieces I need to make the entire bird. When I have all the pieces, I can start. First thing first, I choose the small planks I want for the body and the flower. Then I glue those patterns on it. Since it's a bit big, I begin by cutting part of it with the bandsaw. But for the intricate cuts, I use the scroll saw. When the first piece is cut, I put it on another blank pattern and return to the scroll saw. When I'm finished with the yellow part, I choose another wood species for the wing. Since this wood has a very prominent wood grain, I carefully align my pattern on it. And back to the scroll saw. Another piece in place. I do the same thing for all the other pieces. When I'm done, I remove all the papers. And here's the final product. This is a good start. Yes, a start, because each piece has to be shaped with sandpaper. For my bigger pieces, like the body, I begin by removing some wood with my bigger pneumatic sander, which is equipped with a coarse grit sandpaper. When I'm satisfied with the general shape, I use the NL pneumatic drum, which has a finer sandpaper, and polish the final shape. I make all this sanding under my shop filter, because I have nothing to catch the dust at the source. I also always wear a dust mask, because the top filter is far from being enough. When one piece is done, I place it on another pattern and repeat the same thing for the next one. To accelerate the process, I even use a foot switch. When I have several pieces from the same piece of wood shaped, I glue them 2 by 2 with instant glue. This will help me later with the final glue up. Instant glue is perfect for that, because when I finish its put over, the glue doesn't even show. If I have more than 2 pieces to glue together, I wait for the glue to dry and add to the glue up. I do that along the way so I can glue and continue shaping more pieces at the same time. When I have several pieces glued together, I can check the fit of the glue up with its adjacent piece. If it doesn't fit together, I reshape them so they'll fit well. Now I'm almost done. You can see that I still need to shape those that are glued together and the final pattern. For the leaves, I have to shape the inner part by hand. The flower has a lot of pieces. I glue all the petals together along with the beak, so I'll just have one piece to glue later on. Okay, now I have almost all the pieces done. Almost, because I still need to cut the legs and the eye. Those 3 pieces will be made out of ebony. I cut 3 small pieces for that. It's out of the question to use motorized tool to shape those small pieces. This takes more time, but I manage it anyway. Now with the right leg in place, I can trace the shape I need to remove for this leg and remove it. Then I can glue it in place. Now I need to take care of the eye. I begin by finding the size of the eye. When I find it, I drill the eye. Then, again with instant glue, I glue the eye in place. When the glue is dry, I finish the sanding. After a last inspection, I'm ready to glue this onto the door. But I don't have a door, I just have a frame. So I need to cut some wood for the interior of my frame. But this is way too thin for the rabbit I made, so I have to glue 3 layers together. I spread glue on the first layer and lay the center layer on top. I spread more glue and lay the final layer. The last thing to do is to clamp all this. I lay the sandwich on 2 strips of hardwood, add a lot of clamps, and leave this alone. The next morning, I'm ready to give a light sanding. Not too aggressive. I don't want to cut through this thin veneer. And now I'm ready to cut this to size. But first, I need to have one side straight. Okay, I'm a bit too wide. Now that I have the right width, I have to cut one end straight. When I look at the cut, it's far from being okay. I need to cut this again. But this time, I'm sticking some blue tape on the cut to hold the veneer in place. Okay, it's not 100%, but it's a bit better. Now I need to mark the exact length. I begin by placing a piece of wood to lift the plywood a bit so I have a better idea of the length, mark it, and cut it. One thing for sure, this cut is way better, but it was farther away from the end. This doesn't fit, but to avoid damaging the veneer too much, this time I'm removing the wood with a block plane. Perfect, I'm ready to glue the bird. First, I trace the shape of the opening on the plywood. Then I make the final sanding, but I'm staying away from the lines I made. Then I'm able to place all the pieces in place to figure out their final placement. When I'm satisfied, I can start to glue the bird. To make my life easier, I begin by gluing the body and the head. So without moving the pieces too much, I spread glue under the body and replace it exactly at the same place. Next, I do the same thing for the head. Now I can move all the rest of the pieces away, and with a damp paper towel, I remove the glue excess around the two pieces. When I'm done, I lay some parchment paper on top, add 3 sandbags, and let this aside while the glue dries. So during this time, I can finish the frame. I begin by removing the glue and sanding everything real smooth. Then I can route a nice profile around the frame. I'm very satisfied of the result. This looks way better than a square corner. And now that the glue of the first 2 pieces is dry, I can go ahead with the rest of the glue ups. And since I have 2 well-glued pieces, this goes way faster and better. I just have to spread a bit of glue and lay each piece in place. I don't wait and wipe the excess right away. I do the same thing for all the pieces. This goes quite quickly because I pre-glued all the pieces beforehand. And because of that, it's harder to make a mistake or put any piece out of place. I glue everything except the stem and the leaves. And just like the last time, I add some weight and leave this to dry. When the glue is dry, it's time to glue the stem. In fact, it's the most difficult piece to glue. I want it to be well glued, without using too much glue. But I know that even with this small needle glue bottle, I'll spread too much glue. And I have just one chance to put it in place. Otherwise, I'll make a mess with the glue if I move the stem too much. Then it's time for the leaves. This is way easier. And the last piece to glue is the second leg. This piece is glued in place with instant glue, because this glue won't show after one coat of finish. And just like last time, I put some white on the piece, which I glued with wood glue. Now I have to wait for the glue to dry and sand the last 2 lines on the front. But before I can glue the frame to the rest, I need to soften all the hard edges. And now I'm ready. I begin by spreading a bead of glue on the bottom of the rabbit. I also add another bead on the side. Then, with the back lifted, I lay the frame on top. Finally, I add some clamps. Yes, just a bit of clamps, because I need to remove the glue that's squeezed out, and I have to move the clamps around to remove the glue which is under them. But for the corners, I begin by removing the excess glue with a chisel. When I'm done, I add more clamps and wait for the glue to dry. So while this is drying, I carve a plaque because my sister was unhappy last year because I didn't sign the serving tray I made for her. Okay, I wish this can go that fast in real life. After an hour, the glue is dry enough so I can remove the clamps and clean what's left of the glue squeeze out. And I let it dry overnight. The next morning, I'm ready for the finish. I begin by vacuuming the dust. Then, to be sure, I blow the rest. Now, it's true. I spray the first coat of finish. As usual, I begin by spraying under the door. Turn it around and spray the front. When I'm done in one direction, I turn the door 90 degrees and spray in the other direction. Since it's a water-based finish, I can spray the second coat 4 hours later. But before doing that, I give it a light sanding. On the flat part, I use a very fine sandpaper. But for the board itself, I use a scrubbing pad. It's much easier to reach the curves. After removing the dust with a damp paper towel, I spray the second coat. I repeat the same thing for the third coat. But the final test will be Liza's reaction on Christmas Day. Okay, I guess you figured out where I was standing when she opened her present.
Merci!
But I was well aware that my job was not done yet and that she would want me to put the door in place. So after removing her old door she has in her bedroom, I reused the hinge and installed it on the door I made. I do the same for the door catch. Now I just need to put it in place. All done. Okay, this is much different than what she had in the first place. I hope I didn't bore you too much with a repeat of this intarsia project, but this won't stop me from coming back for another episode of the Woodpecker.